like you for Shaman's Forest Woodscraft. Alright, last time in Woodsy Knowledge we talked about the pine tree and resources. Today we're going to step back and we're going to look at tinders for fire starting. Okay, several people asked when they saw my video where I was resupplying my fire kit what the white stuff was I was mixing in with the cedar bark, and that was thistle down. But let's talk about what tinders bring to the party for us. Tinders are simply some light, easily combustible material that's going to give us an advantage in the fire starting. Now, some of them are more suited to certain tasks than others, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. So let's start with the simple thing of tinders. I consider three kinds: flash tinder, prepared tinder, and natural tinder. What is flash tinder? Flash tinder is any kind of tinder that any spark or ignition that hits it, it catches and goes quickly, but does not burn long. It burns up very quickly. So it goes whoosh and it's gone. It's a great accelerant but it's not a true accelerant. It does burn, it just burns very quickly. That's a flash tinder. What I was doing with my tinder bundle kit was I was mixing that thistle down in with that cedar bark to help catch a spark. Let's say if I'm having to do flint and steel, or if I'm having to do some other method that is not the method I want to use, or just the conditions or so, I need that little extra advantage. It's already mixed in. You can combine different tinders when you're creating your tinder bundles or your bird's nest. Sometimes that's a big advantage. And by adding a flash tinder in, and there are many kinds of flash tinders, do your own research and you'll find out what works in your area. It's a very quick way to catch a spark and then transfer it to some other material in your bundle and therefore get it going quickly. But bull thistle down works as a flash tinder. Prepared tinder. This is something like char cloth. This is something that's been made up ahead of time for you to carry with you. Vaseline and cotton balls is a prepared tinder. Dryer lint could be argued as a prepared tinder. And speaking of dryer lint, a lot of people want to use dryer lint. The problem with dryer lint is if your clothing is not a lot cotton but is more synthetics, then your dryer lint is synthetics, and many of the synthetics have a flame retardant added into them. So you can end up with a relatively flame retardant dryer lint. What you can do to hedge your bet in this prepared is take the dryer lint and spread it out on something and spray it with hairspray and let it dry. This will add as an ignition source into the dryer lint, and when you hit it next time, it catches right away. It's an old trick we used to do years ago when we were doing public demonstrations with flint and steel for kids or something in school. We'd take our bird's nest and we'd spray it down with hairspray the night before and let it dry. It would catch very easily. Therefore, when you're doing the demonstration, wow, you had fire very quickly. So like Aquanet or the cheap hairsprays do a good job at adding to and making a prepared tinder. Natural tinders. This is like cedar bark, birch bark, and many other types of things that you gather and process. You macerate, tear it apart to expose the fibers. This is a prepared tinder that is actually a natural tinder. This is something I'm going to gather locally. So in my fire kit, I'm carrying a cedar bark shredded up to a point, not fully processed. I want to release those vital oils at the last minute when I'm sitting there and breaking it up. And I've added in thistle down as a flash tinder to help it. I also carry several other things in my kit like you saw. So we've got flash tinder, thistle down. We've got a prepared tinder like char cloth, and we've got a natural tinder like cedar bark or birch. Now how about a waterproof, a man-made, and accelerants? Waterproof. You can carry with you, and you should carry in your fire kit, some sort of waterproof, so that if you take a dunk out of a canoe and it's a quarter mile before you can claw your way back up on the bank and it was on you, you got something that will ignite. Those round discs like you get, like the Pathfinder school sells, that have been treated in various components. So it's wax and something. You can tear them up and they catch fire. They're waterproof. You can leave them underwater. The name escapes me right now, guys. I'm sorry. I'll try to put it in here. Okay. But I personally carry fat wood because it doesn't matter. If it's been underwater or whatever, you just simply shake it off and start shaving down, and it's waterproof. Water can't force itself into the fibers. It won't absorb the water because the fibers are locked full of that resin, that turpentine-like resin. So I used to do a demonstration a lot on an old family land when I was a kid. One of the posts on the pier of my granddaddy's pond was made out of a post about that big around that was fat wood and had been underwater 25 or 30 years. And so I would reach underwater and peel off a splinter off of that fragmented old post, shake the water off of it, fray it up with my pocket knife and hit it with a spark, and you catch a spark and ignite. Sometimes water's still dripping off the other end of it. It works. So I'm carrying a waterproof tinder. No matter what happens to me, I have a waterproof. You can get several different things. Cotton ball, soaked with Vaseline, packed into a watertight container would be a waterproof. But you need to have in your fire kit some form of waterproof. So no matter what, you've got a piece of tinder that's going to catch. Man-made tinders. Now this is something that's quite often overlooked. Trash and garbage that you pick up everywhere quite often burns quite readily. You know them white styrofoam cups that you get at the takeout? Hit them with a match one time. They burn like napalm. Just hold a raw flame to it and you'll watch it just start catch fire and it'll burn quite readily. Paper cups, trash, papers, anything that you gather that was man-made material that could be used as a tinder, that's a man-made tinder. I've taken newspaper, or I've taken receipts out of my pocket or whatever and shred them up real fine to make a man-made tinder like that. Accelerants. Accelerants are like fuels, oils, anything that I can hit with a spark or once going will take off. Kerosene, turpentine, fuel oils. So let's say I'm in a situation where I've got stranded but I have my vehicle. Well, there's motor oil, that burns. There's transmission fluid, that burns. There's brake fluid, that burns. I've got something I could take out of the car and put onto and ignite. Natural accelerants, like I talked about in my last video, pine sap, several other plants produce things. Birch trees, like I said, you can get birch oil and things like that, and those are accelerants. Not to overlook dry accelerants, like gunpowder, like I may have rimfire ammunition and break it apart if I thought that was the most prudent thing to do, and hit it and get it to ignite, and it's going to burn very fast and hot, but if I've got a tinder bundle right on top of it, it'll catch it and go. Again, use what resources you have, but have a mindset to see everything as a resource. What is the least amount resource? I can take a solid hunk of oak and sit there and shave and scratch and scratch until I make a fine dust of shavings. But man, it's going to take forever when I can just walk over and pick up something else that isn't going to require that much processing. How do you know what takes the most processing? Dirt time. Get out there and practice. Here's a great piece of homework for you. Get out and gather even around your yard. Look at things and try it out. Pine straw. Try dried grass clippings. Try this plant, that vine, this, whatever. Dryer lint. Just get out on the driveway and practice. See what ignites easily and what doesn't. Get a working knowledge of what you can pick up and will do and how much effort it's going to take to get it to work. That's the dirt time you need to do. Okay, and then lastly we're going to talk about the magic tinders. Now, these are not truly tinders. The reason I call them the magic tinders, these are some sort of compounds that when they're put together combust and ignite by themselves. I'll give you one example. Powdered chlorine and brake fluid. If they are combined, they go through a chemical reaction process and produce flame. I mean flame. It looks like a Roman candle going off. Don't do this inside. If you want to try this, get out in a big open area where you can do it. I recommend putting it inside of something like a coffee can and putting a little bit, let us say a shot glass worth of brake fluid in the bottom of the can, and add like a equivalent of a half a coffee cup of powdered chlorine, like you put into a pool, put it on top of it and back up. That's going to generate a whole lot of heat real quick. It'll take it somewhere 30, 60, 90 seconds, something like that, then suddenly smoke. And when the smoke starts, you're at ignition. 1, 2, 3, whoosh, and it goes by itself. Those are magic because they do it by themselves. Now, maybe that's outside the scope of Tinders, but I consider it part of it because if you have the knowledge and you can see together, well, that and that goes together. That and that goes together. So, to recap right quick, Tinders, any light, fluffy source that can generate really fine fibers that readily catches a spark or etc., catches a flame, and then will transfer it onto larger fuel sources, kindling, etc., or twig bundles. Tinders I consider to be flash tinders, something that goes up very quickly, like thistledown, bull thistledown. A prepared tinder, like char cloth, things like that. Or you could even count char that you make in the fire, not cloth, but wood char. Natural tinders, like cedar bark, birch, and other plant materials that you can gather readily and will use to make a very good startup source. Waterproof fire tinders, something that doesn't matter if I get dunked, I can shake it off, and by applying spark or match or raw flame from a lighter, I can get a fire going. Man-made, these are things like garbages, trashes, dryer lint, things like that, something that's a waste product that can be gathered up and utilized. Accelerants, oils, fuels, powders, anything that I can take and with proper application is going to increase my odds. And finally, the magic ones. All those chemistry whizzes out there that know I can combine this and this and it'll make fire. Those type of things that are tender to me are a step on the ladder taking me up to a fire. I have my ignition sources. I have 2 that produce raw flame, 1 that produces a spark. Matches, lighter, and a ferrocerium rod. I have my tinders. And then from that I make the transition up to my kindling, my fuel, etc. But this is one step on the rung that I need to have solid, because if this fails, it makes it really hard to go any further up. Hope this gives you an idea, guys. Please leave any questions or comments. And as always, thank you very much for supporting my channel. And please like and subscribe and set the little bell if you haven't before. I would appreciate it if you did. Till next time, I'm Blackie for Shaman's Forge, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.